Hey, Forge FC fans, digital host Louis B checking in from the home studio. Of course, Forge FC getting set for the next round of the CONCACAF League. And to talk about that, very pleased to be joined by my friend Steve Milton from the Hamilton Spectator. Milton, it's always a pleasure to see you. How are you?
I'm okay, Louis. How are you doing, digital host? So, Louis, that's all one word, eh? Digital host?
Digital host. Digital host. You got to say it quickly. You know, Forge fans are very used to hearing that. Digital host Louis B. But let's talk about this game. Let's talk about the last game, because there's a question I've posed to some players and Bobby over the past few days, getting a chance to talk to them, is that, 2 years ago, pre, two North Star Shields, pre-CONCACAF wins last year, I'm not sure if Forge FC wins that game last week, down 10 men in a 1-1 game.
I'm not sure any team from the CPL does at that point. And, of course, Hamilton is the best team in the CPL, and they've proven that. I think you're right, and I think we've drilled that into people all the way through since, I would say, the middle of the Island Games, when you could start seeing that the Forge was playing its game, and it was starting to feel itself. They were very calm about things, and the value of experience has really come into this over time. And the few stories I've written on it have emphasized that experience of produces a certain calmness in stress situations. They've had a lot of elimination games or big games. And I think you can thank Calgary for that a little bit, because though that was an incredible rivalry to have developed in a first year. When you look at the great rivalries in other parts of the world in soccer, they don't play anywhere near as many times as Calgary and Hamilton did over that first year and a half. What was it, 9 times or something like that? Every one of them bitter, every one of them pretty well one goal, everyone in doubt till the very end. You get enough of that in a short term, and that's a very high percentage of the Forge's games so far were those types of games. CONCACAF games, 3 out of the 4 games in the CONCACAF were really, really, really close. The last one wasn't against Olympia, but really they're just so used to this being in these kind of tight games, and I think that really showed down there, and that's why I think you're right when you say prior to this they wouldn't have been able to do it.
Do you think the general sports fan in Hamilton can appreciate, or even maybe some Forge fans can appreciate, what this team is doing right now on the global soccer stage? Like, do you think for a casual sports fan, they can kind of appreciate what's going on right now with this soccer team?
No. Yeah. And I think that's, I was just talking to some of my colleagues in the newsroom about that. I don't think we can understand this. I mean, 2 years ago at this time, the league still didn't really exist. We knew it was going to happen. Weren't sure everybody that was going to be in on it. And 24 months later, 20 some odd months later, this team is now playing in its 4th country besides Canada. 4th country, like that. And I think outside, when you watch, say, the TSN broadcast the other night, they talked an awful lot about what Forge means, and they talked about it on the CBC as well, and Soccer One and those kinds of things. It's taken on its own name, and I think in many ways it's respected a little more outside the country or outside the city than it is within. Now you take the hardcore 6,000 or whatever it is. I think they got a pretty good clue of what's going on here. But because I also think CONCACAF is so unwieldy. It's such an ugly name, CONCACAF. Like, it just has no, except to soccer people, it has no resonance. It's not like European, if you said European Championships or something like that. And we come to talk about it being continental. Well, it's 2 continents really, and are involved, and not really. I guess I don't know where Central America fits in there. I think that's part of it, is that it hasn't been that big a deal. I think you have to I think when they play an MLS team, if they can get through here at some point, if they could ever get to the Champions League, and I think with if they get to play TFC, and who knows if and when that'll happen for the national championship, then I think people will be able to have a larger view of what it is that they've actually done and are doing.
On that same note, Bobby Smearniotis, I brought this up kind of on Twitter last week. When you look at his resume, just in terms of what he's done in the Canadian Premier League, but then you look a little further and what he's done when it comes to developing Canadian talent in this country with Sigma FC, and him and Costa have done such a great job of building that program and sending players throughout the world. Like it's not even exaggerating. Literally players throughout the world. Tristan Borges, Kyle Laren, Richie Laria. You look at the resume of Bobby Smirniotis. He's done so much for soccer in this country. Why isn't he a household name when it comes to Canada?
Well, it's becoming that way. First of all, soccer isn't a household sport. It is in terms of playing and participation, but we're a long way back on domestic appreciation as a fan level. It's taken a long time, and we look how long it's taken for the three MLS teams to sort of establish themselves as some kind of entity. And there's very few household names within those teams even yet, even within those three teams, including a team that's has won the MLS championship and came within just a missed penalty shot, wasn't it?
In the snow, yeah.
Of advancing against some of the world's great clubs, so the European and South American clubs and the club thing. So even they aren't household. It takes half a generation to build it up, and part of that is just access. And that's part of the beauty of the CPL, which they lost a year here. They've lost a year of being in front of local markets. I think they probably lost a year in expansion too, Louis. I think they'll be a year behind in expansion, what they would have been. So that would have been and the more and more markets, the chance where people see it live, where they can hear the people's name on the local newscasts and all those things, the more you develop actual fans of it, and then you recognize the overall structure type of thing. Your original question was, do people appreciate enough what Forge have been doing? And of course, Bobby. No, they don't. Neil Davidson of the Canadian Press has wrote a really, really long piece that a lot of people carried across the country because in newspapers and smaller things to edited for space, but to bring to the fore the very things you're talking about with Bobby. And he's not the only one. Mm-hmm. I mean, as much as he's got a funny name around here, Tommy Wilden out in Calgary has done a lot there, given a smaller pool to work with. And some of these players that are coming from, are the one that came from David out of Ottawa and Davies and all of they came from people too, but the bulk of people, the sheer number that Bobby has sent places, and even at a lesser level, the scholarships. And when you can get scholarships to the United States, and Bobby's put, I don't know how many, 52 or 60 or somebody into full scholarships in the United States. That's Bobby and Costa as well. They ran it together, and I think there was a third partner. Those kinds of things really, really help because it keeps soccer guys playing for a while because now they can get a free ride to university. And that, in turn, makes League One better because they come back to play in League One. And that, in turn, makes the CPL better because they own League One. So,
yeah. Let's talk back to this game against Tauro. Like, obviously, they can win this, and then they're in the conversation about, Champions League, CONCACAF Champions League. I mean, it is a huge game. How does Forge approach this game, and how crucial is it to be in Panama this week, to play on the grass, to adjust to the conditions? How huge is that for this club?
Big. I don't think we can forget the fact that they were. It showed at a couple of points there in the last game that they hadn't played a game in anger in 5 weeks, or nearly 5 weeks, right? And that the other team, even though they'd been off for 7 months or 6 months, had got a couple of games in before then with a fairly new lineup to the one that they finished last season with, the El Salvadoran team. But I think getting that game under their belt and then having that to work on, to acclimatize to the weather's a big thing. You could see fatigue. Like there wasn't did you notice that the celebration wasn't big? I think it's because they were as big as normal. They were exhausted. They couldn't move.
Well, and that was the thing. Yeah. It was 8 degrees and raining on Monday. They're on a plane all day. They're traveling all day on the Tuesday. They get one full day, and then they're playing Thursday. Like I think it's hard to appreciate what they did last week to get to that point in the game, to get all their practices, to travel. And they had a 5-hour layover in Mexico, just inside information note, right? I mean, like that's a long travel day. That's a big day to turn around and have the performance that they did in 30-degree humidity, right?
Well, and to recover from a sag at the end of the second. I mean, Bobby said there wasn't one. There was one at the end of the first half, and the other team. That's when you could see that they hadn't played. The two things came into play here that we thought would come into play. One, that a team had played, was playing at home, but had played recently, like really recently, together, was going to be one. And the other was going to be experience. And that was on Forge's side. And both of those things played out at various points in the game. Forge's experience and sort of steely mentality trumped the team having already played a little bit. Now, this is going to be a little different, too. I mean, when they play the game on Tuesday as well, because they're playing against, I'm not sure everybody realized, this is the very top seed in all of the CONCACAF league, right, that they're playing, Tauro, right? And they're, I don't think they should be the top seed, but that's the way soccer works in these kinds of tournaments. At least CONCACAF works, because they take it over a 4 or 5 year period and it's by points. So even though Forge has done very well over the last little while, they only had about 10 points, qualifying points, because they only had one season to qualify, and that came from their league championship. So Forge is the bottom seed of all the teams. How many teams were in? 26, I think.
Yeah.
And or whatever. Yeah, I think it was about 26. And
CONCACAF
was number one.
Yeah, because it's club rankings, right? CONCACAF club rankings.
Club rankings, yeah.
I remember Bobby yeah, because Bobby talked about it with CD Olympia. You know, he told me, like, here's a club ranking of, like, you know, here mid-hundreds, whatever. But, like, Forge is nowhere close to that. You know, because it is, like you say, over this 4 or 5 year period.
Yeah, it's weighted to the back end, but it's still, you know.
Yeah. Just one last thought here, Bobby. Just the you know, David Schwanier, Anthony Novak, obviously 2 huge goals, but I mean, we can't say enough just how well this team is gelling. And it doesn't matter the lineup that Bobby puts on the field. The versatility of certain players seem to just connect no matter the 11 men he has on the pitch.
Well, they're very deep at a couple of spots. Very deep. Forward being it. They're a little less deep. They're deeper than they were, certainly in the at midfield. But that's backup strength, and they're deeper than they were. Definitely with Tissot in the back end, right? Than they were last year, and that was a bit of a flaw on their part. So they're deep, but they're really deep up front, and to the point that 2 guys that can make an impact, who didn't and live together just around the corner from me, did not go to El Salvador because they're injured, right? And those guys, they're missing them, and yet still. I thought the substitutions, he knows his team very well. I thought the substitutions were just brilliant. And I think he would have had, if it had been 1-0 instead of 1-1, then maybe the substitutions are in a different situation, maybe later, and maybe in a different manner. But I just thought the way, and they paid off fantastically with the substitutions.
It's incredible, because I know you can appreciate it, but you know, even me asking about Bobby not getting the love he deserves across the country, I just think seeing him up close, he's such a smart guy when it comes to soccer. And that's the one thing that, like, even talking to Edgar about this is, like, you know, Edgar's played for a lot of coaches. He puts Bobby right near the top of the list in terms of guys who know their stuff and can get results. Well,
and it's funny because I think there was a quote from your story where he said, or your interview, where he said, guys that are supposed to be these great coaches. Now, and then he's referring to a couple of situations he had in England, of course, where reputation counts. And it's particularly important coming from Eddie and a couple of guys like that who didn't play for Sigma. Yeah. The guys who came here from Sigma were already sold. All right. They were already sold, and they were sold 2 years ago because they came back to play for Sigma in League One when there wasn't a CPL yet to get them ready to move to Hamilton. That was the little movement that was already going on 2 years ago in League One when Sigma, some of those players came back to Sigma from other places to play for nothing and to get this chance. They were sold already on Bobby. The guys like Eddie weren't. They didn't know him. Really, they knew him by reputation. So that's a very important thing for a guy like for Edgar to say something like that.
Milton, it's always great catching up with you. It's great to see you. We appreciate your coverage of this team, as always, in the spec. Thanks so much for doing this, buddy.
Okay, thanks, Louis.
We are the mighty, mighty